everyone, so this is a video lesson looking at the methods for multiplying fractions. There's a quick starter here based on the stuff we've been doing more recently. Can you complete that first and then come back on the video for the answers? Right, so the answers to these. The first task when we have to add or subtract fractions is to make sure that we have a common denominator. Now we can get that, if we remember, by multiplying the two denominators within the question together. So 4 times 7 gives us 28 as our common denominators. We have multiplied the first fraction by 4 to get the 28, so we have to do the same to the top, making 8 over 28, and the second fraction is multiplied by 7, making 21 over 28. The last thing to do here then is to add our two top numbers together, leaving our common denominator of 28. So 8 plus 21 giving us 29. We can also at this stage change this to a mixed number. 28 goes into 29 one time with a remainder of 1, and we place that over our denominator of 28. Next, here we have got to subtract a fraction from a mixed number. So we'll have to change the mixed number first into a top-heavy fraction. So 2 1/3, 2 times 3 plus the 1 gives me 7 over 3. Subtract 4 over 5. Again, at this stage then, I have to make the common denominator to multiply the two denominators together, giving me 15 as the common denominator. We've times the first fraction by 5, so it is 35 over 15, and we've times the second fraction by 3, so that is 12 over 15. When we subtract those two numbers on the top then, we end up with 23 over 15. And just as before, we can change this to a mixed number. So 15 goes into 23 once, with a remainder of 8 over 15 as our fraction. Okay. Now these ones don't require to be simplified, but just remember, if we can simplify a fraction answer, then we must. A couple of you who sent me in work over the past couple of days have forgotten that fact at the end, so just remember that, to do that at the very end of your calculations. Okay, so multiplying fractions is what we are looking at today, and I always find multiplying fractions the easiest to understand. When I'm thinking about multiplying fractions, multiplying anything, the fraction process seems to be the one that makes the most sense. Okay, so when we are multiplying fractions, we simply multiply the two top numbers to get our numerator. So 2 times 1 in this case is 2. And then we multiply our two denominators to get the denominator, which is 21. And that is us completed. So if we have our fractions in this form, not in mixed numbers, as normal fractions, we don't need to create a common denominator. We don't even have to change them at all. All we do is times the two top numbers together to get the numerator, times the two bottom numbers together to get the denominator. So the same thing happens then with the two fractions in question B. 3 times 5 is 15, that's my numerator. 4 times 8 is 32, that's the denominator. I can't simplify, so I leave it as 15 over 32. Now these next two questions that I do are the same process to start with. There will just be some simplifying to do at the end. So 2 times 5 along the top gives me 10 as the numerator. 3 times 8 along the bottom gives me 24 as the denominator. Now in this case I can divide top and bottom here by 2, so I must do that to reveal then a fraction of 5 over 12. Okay, if you don't simplify at the bottom there when you can, you haven't completed the question. Similarly for D, 7 times 6 is 42 over 9 times 2, which is 18. So in this case I can simplify first of all. Both of them can be divided by 6. Okay, you could choose to divide them both by 2 first if you like to. So 42 divided by 6 is 7, and 18 divided by 6 is 3. Now 7 over 3 can be changed into a mixed number. 3 goes into 7 twice with a remainder of 1, and that will go over the 3. Okay, so that's our basic fractions, multiplying them together. We'll be focusing on this on Thursday's lesson, and Friday's lesson we will go on to multiplying mixed numbers. Okay, so if you're on Thursday's lesson just now and you're watching the video for Thursday, then stop the video now and go on and complete these questions, and you'll come back to this part of the video during Friday's lesson. So when multiplying mixed numbers, we have to change our mixed numbers to top-heavy fractions. When we're adding or subtracting, that's not a necessary step, it's just the easiest way to perform the calculations. But when we are multiplying, we have to, it's entirely necessary to change our mixed numbers into top-heavy fractions. So in this case, 2.5, well 2 times 2 plus 1 becomes 5 over 2. I want to times that by 3 times 4 plus 1, which is 13 over 4. Times the two top numbers together, and we get 65. Times the two bottom numbers together, and we get 8. Now in this case, we want to change back to mixed numbers whenever we can. 8 goes into 65 a total of 8 times. So 8 times 8 will be 64, with a remainder of 1 over 8, given as our final fraction of 8 and an eighth. For B, we can change this to then top-heavy fractions. So 3 times 3 plus 1 gives me 10 over 3. I have to multiply this by 1 times 5 plus 2, which is 7 over 5. Two top numbers multiplied together is 70. Two bottom numbers multiplied together is 15. And you will often find with these questions that you can change your answer back to a mixed number. Before I do it for this question though, I'm going to divide top and bottom by 5. So that will give me 70 divided by 5, which is 14, and 15 divided by 5, which is 3. 3 goes into 14 4 times, with a remainder of 2 over 3. Okay, so a lot going on here, changing first to top heavy, then simplifying, multiplying, simplifying, and then going back as well. Okay, so quite a lot of steps to do with these multiplying mixed numbers. The last thing to consider is questions C and D. We saw these briefly on last Friday when we looked at the code breaker. So the first thing we have to do when we have a whole number to multiply, to add, subtract, or to divide from one of our fractions is to change it into a fraction itself. So 2 becomes 2 over 1 times by 1 over 3. Now we have two fractions to multiply, so multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. 2 times 1 is 2, 1 times 3 is 3. So 2 over 3. Similarly for question D here, 2 over 5, make that 4 over 1. Multiply across the top to get a numerator of 8, across the bottom to get a denominator of 5. We can change this to a mixed number. 5 goes into 8 one time, with a remainder of 3, and that goes over our denominator of 5. Okay, so these questions here just taking in a little bit of what we did as well last Friday with those whole numbers. Okay, you will see questions like that then today, which should be Friday. That's when you should be watching this video, so there should be on the Teams page enough information for you to get going with. Okay, please make sure you ask questions, remember to send me in your work, and just keep in touch with me so I know how you are getting on. Okay, thank you, good luck.